And action.
Welcome to the Fit Society Better Together podcast. I have no idea what episode this is, but I'm going to guess 18, 17?
17.
17. I was close.
High teens, people.
What is it?
High teens.
High teens. Yeah, we're freaking moving, man. Moving and grooving.
Pretty sure it's 17.
How are you, gentlemen, today? I'm here with MJ and Cassidy.
Hello. Doing great.
Happy Monday, Corey. I am well. I am just off a weekend seeing my ma and my steppa in Colorado, and I'm well. Thank you, sir. Hope you're well yourself.
How are you?
I am well.
Good.
I am very well. I have no complaints. Isn't this lovely? There's three guys doing well.
Good. You want to intro our episode now?
Yeah, I guess I can do that. I just came off shift, a little foggy,
right.
A little slow, you know.
Catch
I
up,
should have gotten cold brew with like an extra shot in it to get me buzzing. But our episode today is going to be on accountability. Kind of what the system of accountability looks like, a couple myths, like we always do, 3 thoughts, 2 myths, an action, and a question to ask yourself. So we'll kind of just jump right into it with our initial 3 thoughts, each of our own thoughts on accountability in general, and kind of what that means and looks like to you. Drum roll, please. Cassidy, go.
All right. Accountability. Well, it's one thing that I know when I started with Studio Fit, I really didn't have any accountability. I mean, I went to the gym just because I wanted something new. I wanted to get into the gym and, just, try to feel better, try to look better, all that stuff. And I was, really, struggling at times to find my path to get there. And so though, I have self-discipline and self-motivation, until I really found the accountability partner type environment, which I was sorely needing, I didn't hit the goals that I really, really wanted. And so, I mean, I'm all in on it. I believe in it in so many things. I believe in it not only in fitness, I believe in it in nutrition. I believe in it here at work. And there's so many things of value you can get out of an accountability partner, having a system for it. You really, I feel it's very hard to hit your goals or hit your mark unless you have something that's holding you accountable. And so, it's really taking stock in what you do and what you want, and then lining it up with somebody else's ability to help you reach those goals, and vice versa. You doing that same thing for other people. So, accountability, it's one of those things that I found just so much value in it. And so, it's one of those things that, again, it can provide so much value to you and you hitting and reaching your goals or your objectives.
Love it. Yeah, I think I'll kind of come at it from 2 different ways. Number one would be accountability to myself, so personal accountability, which I think is just a big growth thing, a growth opportunity for most people, especially when you start to look internally and then not just like throw it out there like, I'm going to try to eat healthy and go to the gym, right? Like that's throwing it out there. You could call that accountability, but like if you truly sit down, not only lay out your own expectations for yourself, but then at the end of every week or whatever marker you want to choose to then reevaluate how you actually did and literally check the boxes. Yes or no, I did this, or however you want to keep track of that. That can be a really eye-opening experience for people. I think just sitting down and looking at it and being like, holy crap, I said I was going to do this and I literally did 50% of it. Like that can be eye-opening, but it can also be super fulfilling when you sit down at the end of the week and you're like, I freaking crushed that. Like I held myself to a standard and I hit that standard.
Yep.
The second part would be, and I'll go at a different perspective. I won't say somebody holding me accountable. I'll say me holding other people accountable. So this could be in work if you're in a position to do that, or with your coworkers. This could be with your spouse if I don't have kids, but if you had kids, this could be with your kids, right? And I think accountability, we'll get into it later in the podcast, but it kind of comes across as a dirty word, or like a sit down, like you almost feel like a kid, like sit down, I'm going to give you a little accountability talk here. But I think it's a really beautiful thing, because you can lay out clear expectations for somebody. And then what that does is that opens up a conversation, so both of you are on the same page, but then B, really makes it an easy transition to then later on sit down and be like, hey, like, I'm not trying to be an asshole or a dick here. Like, I just want to have an open conversation. Here's what I thought we were going to do for each other, or here's what I thought you were going to do for the company, or whatever the case may be. And here's where I'm feeling like, based on our talk, we're either lacking, or like, hey, you're providing me exactly what I need, but I also need this, or maybe I don't need so much of that. Like, it really just takes this thing that's kind of two people or a company and a coworker coexisting, and they're just trying to figure it out based on day-to-day interactions, and provide structure and guidelines to grow a relationship or grow a business, or whatever you're using it for.
Yeah, agree.
I think, to your point, Corey, because you guys, Cassie kind of went the fitness route with the accountability and his experience with then Studio Fit, now Fit Society. Corey started cross-pollinating into organizational capacities. The thing about accountability, to me, to echo your other sentiment, Corey, that like people hear that word and the first thing's like, like people are gonna look at this podcast and be like, Better Together podcast, accountability. They're gonna be like, but it's a beautiful thing, because accountability in and of itself, I think, transcends so many capacities, whether you have goals or objectives that you want to accomplish in fitness, with your family, relationally, in finances. I'm going through the F's, right? Fitness, finance, and fun, recreationally, like what's in it for me. At the end of the day, what accountability to me is, it's the alpha and the omega, the beginning and the end of whether or not what you actually want is going to come to fruition. It's where the rubber meets the road. Like, ideas are everywhere. Strategies are everywhere. Tactics are plentiful. Methods are many. But at the end of the day, the difference between you accomplishing those things in whatever lane you decide to accomplish them or desire to accomplish it comes down to accountability. So then you go, okay, how do I do that? What does it look like? We know generally, so my general thought on it is that, number one, it's the differentiator between somebody actually realizing what they want or not, and then the forms of it being like internal and external. So you got internal is like promises made to myself, promises kept to myself, and then you have the external, which is like promises made with or consensus with somebody else, and then finding external ways to be held to account or hold others accountable, right? But my macro thought is that it transcends all areas of your life, and then specifically individual and then external. And it's the differentiator of you winning or losing with what you want to win at.
Right. Yeah. I think like a funny little pre-podcast discussion we just had is, I was just telling these two gentlemen that I was leaving for work yesterday, and I have a certain pair of shoes that I wear to work because they're a little beat up, and I couldn't find them. Spent like 30 minutes, 40 minutes looking for them the night prior. Could not find these stupid shoes. And I'm just angry. Like, where the hell did my shoes go? I'm blaming other people in my head, right? Or my dogs. I'm sure my dogs probably freaking ate them or something stupid like that. I'm now podcasting with these gentlemen. I look to my right, and literally in the middle of the room are my two pair of shoes, wide open, nothing covering them, like clear as day. And I'm sure in the moment when I took them off, I was like, I'll just kick these off here real quick and like I'll grab them later. And I made an excuse to not hold myself accountable, to just pick up the stupid shoes, walk 25 feet to my closet, and put them where all my other shoes are. And like, it's just doing the right thing when nobody's looking, to include when yourself is not looking. Like, I could have just picked that. I would have saved myself 45 minutes by taking 10 seconds to walk 25 feet.
And the frustration.
Ridiculous. Yeah. And frustration.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Ridiculous.
And I think another thing too is that we always think that you have to go to a pro. If you can't be held accountable by somebody that's your peer or maybe a junior to you, but that's totally false. I've been a mentor and an accountability partner to people who are, I guess, in professional world above me, and then several below me. And I've had the same with me, which is great. Just because I've been on this earth for a short 51 years, man, I'm learning stuff all the time, and I love it. And so I mean, obviously I want somebody who's going to be able to communicate with me. And I guess maybe we can talk about that too, is how do you find that person? And we'll probably talk about that in the go, but how do you find that person? But also, how do you find the system that works best for you? Again, it's one of those things that you don't have to have a pro or an expert in what is out there that you need help with. You just need somebody to keep you, on track, and you guys have to be able to communicate very well together, because there has to be that honesty and that, I guess, clarity, like you talked about, Corey, is that, you have to have a clear vision of where you want to go, or else the accountability just isn't going to really do much for you. It's kind of all over the map. It might help you a little bit, but it's going to be over the map. You probably won't hit those goals. And, it all kind of rolls back to the VOPA piece of the puzzle. But yeah, so that's another thing.
Based off that, Cass, I think that rolls right into our first myth, which is accountability is almost like a form of punishment or perceived punishment. The reality is based off of what all three of us just said, we all three subscribe to the fact that there is a time and a place for accountability. Okay.
Yeah.
And that it's not a bad thing. Now, your angle on it, Cassidy, is going into methods. I think the one takeaway from accountability that everybody needs to understand is we all need it. Like if you're on this call right now or this podcast and you're like, I'm good, you're not seeing it right, like for sure. Now, so the principle in this conversation is that accountability matters. Now, the method to where Cassidy was going, and Cassidy's big on partner accountability, right? And that's one method. The key takeaway for all of us in this myth of like, it's a form of punishment is like, no, it's not a form of punishment. Number one, it matters. You can't argue that. It's a principle, but your method can change and be malleable. There's personal accountability, setting an expectation accountability with myself, and then holding it to account. That has a time and a place for some people, maybe.
Yeah.
Or like Cassidy goes, you know what? I want somebody else. And to your point, Cassidy, very well received, is it doesn't have to be a professional, but you know what? You might need a professional if that's what you need in your system. The main takeaway in all of it is like, I think accountability and discipline are very synonymous with each other. Those two things are in the same world. It's like, we don't like them, but we need them. Right? Like there's not one person on planet Earth that would not stand to benefit from living a more disciplined life. I would be so bold to subject that there's not one person on planet Earth that would not benefit from having more accountability or pointed accountability, either internally or externally on planet Earth. So this notion that it's bad or bad for you, it can be uncomfortable, right?
Sure.
It can be like, I don't like it. Those are all normal.
Most growth is, right?
Those are very normal things to say, but to say you don't need it is a very dicey place, I think, for anybody to be so bold to make that claim.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Totally
I would say too, and this kind of wraps into our second myth here, which I'll say in a second, but I have a feeling that a lot of people don't like it because they've had negative experiences in the past with it. And I think probably a lot of them are negative experiences, but they're just looking at it the wrong way. So the second myth here that we listed out was because I fail, I'm not accountable. So because you missed the mark, because you weren't 100%, you've now failed. You're not an accountable person. Like, write it off. Or you might be thinking about it yourself, right? Or you might have had the accountability talk from your boss, your mentor, your peer, where they sit you down and they go like, listen, like, this is what we said we were going to do. You did not do any of it, or you only did 75% of it and we didn't get it done, right? So that can come off super negative. What I think we kind of wanted to address is the fact that, like, again, an overlaying theme in almost every podcast we have is consistency is really what wins the day here. And being accountable is more so just having something in place. I kind of, in my head and thinking about it right now, I just went bowling last weekend. It's kind of like having the bumpers on the alley, right? It's not that like if you hit the bumper now with the pins that you hit don't count. It's just guidance. You're kind of veering left and it like ricochets you off and kind of puts you back on track. That's what accountability is. Your accountability is your ball hitting that bumper and being like, hey, listen, check-in time. We're not going where we need to go. Like, so let's get back on track, bump you in the right direction so that way you can go hit that strike or knock those pins down, whatever those goals may be.
Yeah. I like, and it's crazy because talking or listening to a podcast this morning, I listened to a guy named Rob Dial. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him at all. He's pretty good. But he was very clear. This guy obviously does very well. He's got I think he's got, a couple million people follow him or somewhere around there. He's got podcasts. He's got coaching seminars. He does all that stuff. He just hired 3 new people to make him accountable, and it's like him, he's like one of the top, podcasters out there. And he just hired a new personal coach. He hired one for digital marketing because he wants to learn at it. And there's one other one, I think a nutrition or a fitness coach. And so, those are all going to be accountability partners for him to get better, from a guy that's what his job is. He's out there making people accountable. And now he is going, and like you said, and MJ says this all the time, I love it. He doubled down. He's like, I know a lot, but I want to know more. And I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna double down. I'm gonna invest in myself, and I'm just gonna go all in on this and get better. So it's everyone out there. It's not just people who are just starting their whatever goal you're going after. It's people that are at the top of their game are still needing accountability partners.
I think the keyword there you said too was, I know it's a podcast about accountability, but is invest in yourself. I think people drastically overlook how much the people that are at the top of the game or are rising towards the top of the game invest in themselves in ways of, like you said, other people holding them accountable or getting coaches or getting somebody who's better than them to teach them.
Yep.
It's the fastest way to learn. It's the most bang for your buck because you have somebody sitting there literally telling you like you messed this up or you missed days here or you didn't do that or you did do this. You do good at that. Double down on that. I think people just drastically overlook at it and they literally see it as dollars and cents. And they're like, I could just hold myself accountable. And like, maybe you can, sure. Yeah. But putting in the extra time and effort, it might not even be money, but putting in extra time or effort to find that relationship and accountability buddy or the money to get that coach that's going to hold you accountable. So worth it. So much worth your time. I think all 3 of us have coaches or accountability partners.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, multiple of them.
It reminds me of the episode we did on should I hire a coach?
Yeah.
And it all comes back to where are you at now? It's a really simple equation. It's not easy to live it out, but where are you at now? Where do you want to be and how are you getting there? Like in everything, where are you at now? Where do you want to be and how are you getting there? And when you don't go down this process and have these conversations, the uncomfortable conversations on how to, and that's where I started with like, this is where the rubber meets the road. You can have ideas all day long. You can have like, I think I kind of maybe want to this or that. And we all struggle from a case of the mores. I want more. Everybody's willing to or wanting to change their circumstance, but they're not willing to change themselves and put in systems either internally or externally to do that. So it reminds me of that, should I hire a coach? Well, if you have a need that requires that, absolutely. Yeah. If you have a need that doesn't require that, then no. But going back to this with our myth of I failed and therefore I'm not being held to account. No, that's part of the process. You just have to understand how and when. And then we'll go into our, I'm debating whether or not to go into the question or not, but we probably should, because it all ties into like, well, okay, we believe in accountability. It's not comfortable. Well, what's your system for it, right? What's your system for this stuff, which is the question on a macro level and then on your specific thing. But if you don't have accountability, you don't have a chance. You just have to tell yourself, if I don't have accountability in my life, I don't have a chance to get from where I'm at now to where I want to be. And you're right, Corey, all of us have accountability partners, some paid for, some otherwise, but it comes back to, we all have a system. At least we have a system. We've identified a system, and our system internally that we use on an organizational level, employee level, and on a member level is the VOPA system. For those that don't know, it's vision, which is why I want to accomplish, my O, which is objectives or goals, my P, which is my process, my strategy, my tactics, what I'm going to do. But all that comes to fruition if and only if you have accountability to hold those processes to account. That is one method, right? That's one method of putting together goal setting and making sure that happens. It's not the only method. But what every method needs is a system for accountability. What is yours, right?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And I think a lot of people will probably like little side question this is they're asking themselves, like, how do I know if I need accountability too? I think that plays into like having the accountability system itself. Like what do I use the system for? What would I use it for? Number one, I think you should use it for just about everything. Like you should set up an accountability system, use it for just about everything. But if you're like really wondering, an easy step here to take is like, have I tried to do this thing once before and failed? Because I've had plenty of client conversations and sit downs, and MJ, I'm sure you have too, and Cassidy, probably you have too, in the business world or fitness world or wherever. But I've had plenty of sit down conversations where I talk to somebody and they're like, well, I want to lose 30 pounds. It's like, have you tried to lose 30 pounds before? Yes. And then like rubber meets the road. And now we're talking about like, okay, well, this is the accountability system we need. Like, I'm going to be your accountability coach. I'm going to check in with you every week, blah, blah. And then it's like, I think I might just want to try it on my own. And you're like, you did that. Did it work? Like, I'm not saying it can't work, but like a lot of stuff has to change. And probably one of those things that needs to change is you having an accountability system. So unless you have one right now that you're prepared to share with me, like you probably should hire somebody to figure it out or find somebody to help you figure it out.
100%.
So I mean, I just think that's my quick little side take on why, like somebody's sitting down there, like, what do I need an accountability system for? How would I know? That's how you would know.
And, you know, prior to starting this, when we had the conversation, Corey, you brought it up too, is that, you know, you can be successful in a lot of things. You know, let's say you're really successful at work, or you're super successful with your community and you're out there doing a ton of stuff. And you know, you just have that knack of being good at that. Not everybody's great at everything. You know what I mean? And so, you know, you don't, you know, I mean, if you're really good at, you know, like I said, your community, and you're out there and you're taking care of your community, you're doing community service, you're coaching baseball teams, you're active and you're doing stuff. Great. You know, that's good. I mean, unless you want to be better in that, you probably don't need anything in that realm. But there's something that's going to be lacking down that line. And maybe it's nutrition, maybe it's fitness, maybe it's finances, whatever it is. That's where you need to really take stock in your life and say, okay, what am I just lacking? You know, what do I want to be better at? And I'm just not doing it because I don't have a way of getting there. And this could possibly be the route to get you there.
Yeah, I think that's the question you asked right there. Is like, I want to be better at this thing. What is my accountability system for this thing? And if you're not very good at it, you probably don't have a clear, defined answer that you can just spit out.
Yeah. Yep. And the irony of us doing this podcast with what I'm about to say is we're a group of guys that are gym guys from a group space that are fitness centered, right? But one thing that I found, or really believe in when it comes to having accountability or accomplishing something outside of fitness. Okay. So let's say I struggle with spending more than I produce on a monthly basis, and I have financial struggles. Or let's say I have struggles in a relationship. There's certain behaviors that I don't want to exude, that I struggle with behaving one way or another. Or it's in an area of mentally or spiritually, I want to grow in this area, but I have these roadblocks. What's really cool is that I've found in working with just members and clients over the years that when like you go, where do you start? Like, how do I fix this thing or accomplish this thing. What's really interesting about fitness is a conduit, in my opinion, when you can establish a fitness goal and a reason why that's important to you and put together a strategy and an accountability system to go accomplish that. What I've found is that people that can do that in fitness, as a microcosm example, when they do that, what happens is through the physical, which is fitness, the nutrition, the working out, etc., they can learn a skill set that will transition into these other areas, financially, relationally, etc. But I may, again, biased, maybe, for sure. But
I don't think you're biased because I've heard the stories.
yeah,
I've heard the
right.
story. You know, we've all heard countless stories of people being like, I came to the gym, held myself accountable. All these all now dripped over into my other life. I feel better. I look better. I'm more confident.
Yep. And hey, that job thing is now better now. I have the discipline to get up early and make my bed and do those other things that I want to do, whatever it is. And so this topic, this whole podcast is all about accountability. And if you struggle in an area outside of fitness, the irony is I think by you prioritizing, establishing some clear objectives, asking yourself why it's important to you, having a strategy through process, and then holding yourself accountable in fitness, there will be pour over. Like you can't stop it. The old saying, and I may be going off topic here, but like, I know for a while there was a thought that, hey, if my personal life is good, or I'm struggling in my personal life, for example, it won't affect my professional life because I can compartmentalize those two things. Or conversely, if I'm struggling at work, it doesn't affect my home. And I just don't fucking buy it. I just don't buy it. I think that if you have struggle, you have struggle. And why I'm going off on this is like, hey, identify an area primarily in fitness, because that's what we know and we can do and where we can help our viewers, listeners, all three of them, and go, hey, start here in fitness, and I guarantee you it's going to pour over to the good here, and vice versa. So at the end of the day, you got to have a system for accountability. And before you, I think, have a system, you got to go, why is that important to me? What do I want out of it? Like, where am I at now? Where do I want to be? And through the developing of the strategy, all the holes will come up in your game of like where you failed before or where you need the help, and insert wherever you go, I need help here. That's accountability. Like, what is that for you? Coach, no coach, mentor, no mentor, internal, external.
Yeah, sure.
You know,
so if our listeners sit here, right, they just listen to us ramble on this long, I'm a listener, what do I need to ask myself here?
I think is take stock.
Yeah.
Take stock in your life. What do you want to get better at?
Yep.
You know, and from there, there's like MJ and you said, there's several different ways. You know, there's accountability partners. I just started a new one. There's my my calendar. I mapped out this next week of activities I'm going to do to be active. I put in my goals of what I wanted to do regarding reading, listening to podcasts, my water intake, my alcohol intake, my food intake. And those are things that I'm going to hold myself accountable to. And like you said, Corey, some people need to see their results, you know, and I'm one of those. I need to see what I did that week and almost give myself a score at the end of the week and go, all right,
good
job, buddy. You made it through, and you exercised 6 times, and you had great, water intake. And your food is really good. And maybe you went a little bit over on, your alcohol intake. And I never had that problem, but it really is something for me. I learned that in a BTC, is that I've mapped out every single day. And I think I've talked about this before. I mapped it out on a calendar. I said exactly what I was going to do. And regardless of what was happening in that day, I did it. And I got the best results that I've ever had because of that. And so that has now turned into what I do on just a normal life. I do also with work. I do it with folks on my team. I work with them on that. And I say, hey, let's check out your calendar. Let's go through it real quick. So, that's a tool in which I use.
Corey, I'll take a 30-second stab at, if I'm a member or a listener, what do I do with this? I'd find out something in my life that's important to me. I'd ask myself why I'm not accomplishing it. And like, be honest, like you said, Cassie, take stock, like have an open and honest self-awareness conversation with yourself. Upon completion of that, when you come to that realization, the very first thing I would do based off of my experience in working with fitness is I would, and this seems paradoxical, it might be in a relationship or financial or one of those other areas, I'd go straight to fitness. I would start with a VOPA-centered fitness program that breeds these habits in me and these thoughts in me that put me in a situation to where I can grow and develop and take those accountability systems that I learn in fitness, which is so difficult to do. If you can do it in fitness, you can do it in everything else. And I would just go through that process, failing along the way responsibly, going back to, it's not a failure to mess up. It's a failure to not hold yourself to account on it and grow and get better at it. I would do that all while knowing why I'm doing it over here. And then hopefully those will, not hopefully, but over time, those will bleed from the fitness into whatever area that is, wherever that struggle is that you need accountability. That's a real life actionable thing that is not comfortable, is not fun. But if you really want to change, that's something that needs to be done. And like I go back to, everybody wants to change their circumstance, but they're not willing to change themselves. If you want to change your circumstance, you've got to change yourself. You do it through accountability.
Yeah. Here's another way that I've done it before that also challenging, but impactful. Find the thing, like you said, this is what I want to happen and it isn't happening. List the 4 reasons, and you have to be honest with yourself, why it's not happening. And then out of each of those 4 reasons, list the first step you need to do to change that reason, and then do it. It's a very clear-cut way to be like, well, it's not happening because I'm not prioritizing this, I'm not doing that, I'm blah, blah, blah. And then you go, why am I not prioritizing? What is the first thing I need to do to make sure that I'm prioritizing this? And it might be something as simple as going to the store, buying a calendar, and writing it down. Go do that. Hold yourself accountable.
Totally.
Money.
Sick.
I agree.
Guys,
packed of knowledge.
boom, bam, wada wada, bing bang. Hey, people, just to give you guys a little foresight for the next upcoming, whatever we got, 40-ish episodes, I think it's less than that, 40, maybe 30-ish episodes. We've outlined a lot of big picture topics, us 3, with our thoughts. And in us holding ourselves accountable, which we did prior to this call, we're like, why did we start this? What are we doing? Where are we going? We just did a check-in today. And based off that check-in, what you guys can expect and what we're going to do is we want to expose you more to our coaches and what they have to say for Another Voice through the Coaches Corner. We want to we want to bring some members into the fold that have actually taken a lot of these things that we've talked about, ran with them and been successful. And we'd like you to hear it from that perspective as well, to hopefully help you grow and develop in whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. So we're going to have some guest testimonial members talking about their story. And then we're also going to bring it back to the very beginning of what we want to accomplish here, which was a holistic version of health, which means not just fitness, but family, finance, fun. Cassie has about 18 other F's in there. But all the different capacities outside of just fitness, we want to bring some people and some authority figures that we can all learn from together to provide value as well. And you can expect us rotating through that for the next whatever episodes.
35.
So anyways, guys, love you long time.
You too. Rock on.
Adios, muchachos.
We'll see you guys next week.
Power of the people.
Buddy.
And